Greetings to all the lovely ladies and gentlemen out there. I'm your host, the ProGent, and it's been a little bit since I did an opera glasses. I figured I'd do something based on the fact that I've gone to the movies like once a week in the last month or so, and every movie I've seen has been pretty fucking good. One or two minor gripes depending on the movie, but I figured I could talk about each one a little bit, just give my recommendation. Whenever they come out. I'm sure most of them have probably already left the theaters. So I'll go in order of which ones I saw. And we'll start with Game Night, starring Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams. This was I was not surprised to find out that this was as good as it was, for the same reason that I was surprised for how good it was. Jason Bateman is usually pretty funny, and Rachel McAdams is pretty funny. And I was expecting at least some minor amounts of humor, but I wasn't expecting to go see this movie. It wasn't until I saw the overall reviews for it saying like it was actually pretty good that I decided, you know what, let's actually go see this. I could make a nice night out of it. And I was not disappointed. It was a bundle of laughs from the word go. You start out with Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams' characters meeting at a bar trivia game, and they bond over the fact that they know the answer to a fucking question about the Teletubbies, which is in itself, I mean, that's every person's meet cute, isn't it? So that's how the movies get started, and then you learn basically through montage of them having an awesome relationship that they're super competitive. They have game nights all the time. They play a bunch of specific board games and like charades and stuff with their friends, and this is funny enough. I definitely enjoyed that because I'm a big board game person myself, but I feel like they could have gone the extra mile with it because it's all board games that like you'd play in like the 80s or the 90s. Like their favorite games are like Life and Monopoly and Scrabble. Like modern board games are so expansive that I feel like that could have been an even funnier way to integrate into the movie. But obviously this is a mainstream movie, mainstream comedy. It probably wouldn't have hit with everybody that probably would be seeing this. But that's just a minor gripe. The rest of the characters are a lot of fun. They have a couple friends that they invite all the time, and they avoid their neighbor, who's this really awkward cop who went through a separation with his wife, and he's clearly been obsessed with his wife ever since he met her, and like he's constantly stroking his too tiny dog, and it's just really awkward, and it's always making me laugh because he's just like always straight-faced, and he talks in a very monotone voice asking if he's gonna ever be invited to game night again. And it's a really good character. So the essential plot is that the two main characters and their friends are invited to a game night from Jason Bateman's brother's character, who is basically the hotter, better version of him, and he's like showing off his big house, and he's showing off the fact that the game that they're doing has a reward of the car that his brother always wanted, and is like clearly flaunting it in his face. You know, it's a very generic sort of plot line, but it's made funny because the actors do really well with it. So they end up doing this kidnapping game where the main character's brother hires a company to do a fake kidnapping game. unbeknownst to everybody participating, he actually gets kidnapped in the process. And they think it's a game for so long. And it's so funny because they're playing it off as that. And it keeps going back and forth between, like, could this be real, or no, this is still a game. Like, we gotta figure it out. We gotta win. And the turning point of it really makes it, like, one of the best jokes in it was they picked Rachel McAdams' character picked up a gun and accidentally shot a bullet into Jason Bateman's character's arm, and in that moment they realized, oh shit, this is actually, like, real shit happening. And it leads into this really funny bit where they get a little med kit to pull the bullet out, and she's doing an incision, and then she realizes there's an exit wound, so she's just made it worse by making him bleed everywhere. It just made me laugh so much. But from there, I can't say anymore because there's actually even more twists involved in the story, and it was surprisingly, like, a really well-paced, really funny, and really well-acted movie. I couldn't recommend it enough. Easy watch, and I'd easily go back and watch it again. So the next movie that I watched was just as, if not, and actually much better, like, for different reasons. This was A Quiet Place, starring John Krasinski. So this is a little extra special because parts of the film were filmed in a town, a city near a town that I grew up in. And it's just interesting seeing someone's, like, hometown area be where a movie takes place, and it's especially fun when you realize that it's an apocalypse movie where monsters exist. So I guess in film canon, my area is fucked. But that aside, this movie was fantastic. Last year I talked about how much I loved Stephen King's It, and how phenomenal a horror movie actually was made, and how good, like, the acting was for the kids and stuff. A Quiet Place is just as good as It to me, if not a little bit better for different reasons. It takes every idea that it needed to take and went with each one to a very smart level. So you're going around with John Krasinski and his family in this apocalypse, and what's up is that there are these alien monsters that can hunt you down because they have super ultra sensitive hearing that lets them hear anything from miles away. So the whole movie, for the most part, is pretty quiet. Like, genuinely, it's a quiet place. But the way that they do it, in certain ways, is especially interesting. Because one of the characters, who's John Krasinski's daughter, is deaf. And the way that they show this, besides the fact that, you know, she's wearing a hearing aid, is whenever they're doing, like, perspective from different characters, whenever it goes to her, any ambient noise that was playing around them, you could hear, like, footsteps or, like, running water from the very distance, everything goes away, and it's utter silence. And it's such a good, simple thing to do, and it was the best way to do it because it made tension 10 times worse when you saw, like, the monster behind her, or you saw something happening, like at the beginning of the movie where her little brother has this toy rocket that's making noise, and she doesn't hear it, and she doesn't realize that it would make noise, and, like, it just leads into such a good moment. And obviously I'm not going to go into too many details about this one too, because this one is it is a must-see. There's no way I couldn't recommend this movie enough, both as a fan of horror movies, for the fact that, you know, it was filmed in an area near where I lived, and it's just a good movie. It was so well acted. John Krasinski and everybody else in the cast, they just did a fantastic job. Him and his wife have such chemistry in the film, and they show it in such clever ways. Like they share this tender moment where they're sharing earbuds so they can actually listen to music, and they're just stepping back and forth because that's the only way they can dance without making noise. And it's just sort of this somber echo of like what their lives were, but now that it can't be that way anymore, so they have to make do. A lot of props go to the child actors in it as well. The deaf girl was wonderful. The little boy that they got for her brother was great. And the visuals, obviously, like this is shot in locations that look like where I used to live. They're very rural, farmland-esque places, and a lot of it takes place in like autumn, so the colors are beautiful, they're popping. It's such a nice visually stunning movie. And there's only one or two minor issues with the movie. Like, if you're being smart with this whole movie, how is it that you're not smart enough to do specific things that you've basically established are the smart thing to do, and then you don't do it? But these are minor gripes in basically a near perfect movie, in my opinion. So next is Isle of Dogs. This is a Wes Anderson movie, so obviously it's already going to be very artsy, very, very interesting. The cast, star-studded. There is so many amazing actors in this movie. But the leads would be Edward Norton, Jeff Goldblum, Bryan Cranston, and Bill Murray, who are playing these dogs that are working together to survive after dog flu has taken over in Nagasaki City in Japan. So all of the dogs are relocated to Trash Island, where they're left to fend for themselves. And unbeknownst to them, the mayor of Nagasaki City was like planning this all along because he's a cat person, and he's just trying to get rid of all the dogs because he hates dogs. And it's a obviously goofy kind of concept, but it works well because the visuals are so fantastic, and the stop motion is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So the basic plot is that these four dogs happen upon a little boy who traveled to the island looking for his companion dog. The little boy, named Atari, is trying to find his dog to bring him back because obviously he misses him. So the whole movie revolves around these dogs trying to help him find his dog. And Bryan Cranston's character not wanting to help because he's a stray. He was always a stray, and he's supposed to be a mean dog. But he ends up being the one who bonds with the kid the most. So it's a visually stunning movie. The stop motion's wonderful. The movie is almost completely done in Japanese from most perspectives, but they get around it in such clever ways because they have essentially at the very beginning they have like a disclaimer that people are going to be talking in their native language, and the way that they got around it was they have subtitles, because half of the time when people are talking, they're doing it at like a television screening. So they'll have an interpreter doing all of the lines after they've been spoken, or it'll be actually displayed on a TV screen and you'll see the subtitles put on. And it's just clever ways to go around making it much more visually appealing and keeping the spirit of it all together. There's a lot of really great side characters too. There's this exchange student girl with a massive blonde afro who is trying to fight for dogs' rights to help the science party who are trying to find the cure for the dog flu. And and Yoko Ono is one of the scientists working to find a cure, which is funny in itself. And the theme of how it's paced is like a multi-act play, because they kind of go to this like prologue, chapter 1 thing, and it's clever. The themes of the movie, like man's best friend and finding your place in the world even though you feel like you belong somewhere else, is a very good take on this classic story, and redone in such a well-paced, really, really good way. The humor is actually one of the highlights of it, but it's not like in-your-face jokes. It's actually like one of the best ways to do the humor is just like all of the main dogs just sort of sitting around, and one of them just says, "Hey, have you heard this?" And they just go and talk about rumors, and these dogs talking about these rumors and like the deadpan for most of it is really funny, because it all sort of encapsulates itself in a joke at the end of the movie of, "Say, where are you hearing all these rumors? We're always together. Who are you hearing them from?" "Oh, people." "What people?" Like it's just simple, dry humor, and I think that it's the best kind, because it doesn't need to have any unnecessary like, "Whoa, this happened" sort of thing. It's just, it plays itself very smooth, and I think that it paced itself so well because of it. So I don't want to go, once again, obviously, I don't want to go into too much with the movie, because you need to see it because it's genuinely good. I don't want to tell the story because it's got a really well-paced story. It's got good twists. So I think that you would do well in seeing this one. This is actually probably my second favorite amongst all of these. So on to the last one, the big one. Everybody's been talking about it. Avengers Infinity Wars. I liked it enough. It was okay. I know that people are obsessing about it because it's so fantastic, and I think that they did an okay job. I've been seeing these movies since they started coming out, and I'm not a superhero person to begin with, but because I've sort of invested my time into this series, I might as well keep going with it, because some of the movies are pretty good. Like, I enjoyed Thor Ragnarok a lot. I liked Ant-Man a bit because I liked the humor in it. I liked Doctor Strange because Doctor Strange is actually a superhero I like, because I like the idea of a magician superhero. I like the idea of somebody who uses magic amongst superpowers. It's a cool idea for me, and it doesn't usually get brought up. Those are the kind of ones that I enjoy the most. Guardians of the Galaxy is also pretty good, but Infinity Wars, starts out strong. Like Thanos is, you come back in from the ending of Thor Ragnarok with Thanos trashing Thor's ship, and you see him beat down Thor and the Hulk, and it starts out really building the villain up, and these little side villains that he has, the children of Thanos. And then it starts bouncing between the various groups of characters that we're going to be dealing with for the entire movie. And here's where one of the good sides of the movie comes in, while it's also being a bad side. They balance the characters out really well, and I think that they did a good job with it. However, I think that some characters should have been with other characters and distributed a little bit differently. Not to say that most of the way that they did it was bad, because I think that this was probably it was probably the best way to distribute them, but I think one or two people could have been shifted for better humor value, or better fight scene value. You know, there could have been some real fun stuff going on. But for what we got, not bad. I'm not gonna go on too much with that. Obviously, you have some really great performances by pretty much everybody that's in there. You know, with a 2.5-hour movie, essentially, you're gonna get individual moments that are good instead of like an entire performance being good. But there are a few that do stand out that I'd say the entirety of it was really good. Tom Holland as Peter Parker, solid. He always funny, always delivering good lines. I love this kid. He's one of my favorites. Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, and his interactions with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Tony Stark. Like, these are really good interactions, and I thought that was a good side of the humor while mixing in with the seriousness of their situation. And I think that that's probably my favorite side of this whole situation. Then you have the side in Wakanda with Black Panther and Captain America and Bucky and basically the major slew of the characters. And this is where like the bigger action scenes are that don't involve Thanos. And most of it's pretty good. Some of the fight scenes with the children of Thanos are really cool. And some of the like invading army stuff is actually kind of badass. That I can't call too much into it, just because like if you haven't seen it, then I don't want to spoil it because I don't want to be that guy. But the stuff with Thanos is the best because Josh Brolin does a fantastic job with this role. Because Thanos is the main character. This is his movie, and he's been built up for years now. And I think that they did a great job because they got a great actor for it. The CG work for his model was actually pretty good. Like, when we originally saw him, the purple ballsack chin was very prominent, and they sort of cut that back a little bit so he looks more like just an alien and not too much like Scrody face, I guess would be the best way to describe it. But yeah, he's got really good depth to him. Like, it's hard for this character to see what he's doing because he knows he's the only one that can do it, and he knows that the only way he can do it is basically the worst thing in the world. So he's going to do it because he's the only one that can and will. And it's a good character dynamic because it plays this villain in a way where, like, you question, like, is he actually doing the right thing based on his logic? Like, is there a way he could find a way to do something else? And it's a great character moment when you actually find yourself siding with the villain now and again, because by the logic that he displays and by some of the interactions that he has with people, like, you actually start to question, like, maybe he's right? But that's when you start to question yourself of, like, am I agreeing with a guy who wants to kill half the universe? You know, it's a great way to make you feel connected with the character. The Guardians of the Galaxy also stole a lot of the show. Drax is just hilarious. Dave Bautista continually, in every movie he's in, makes me laugh so much, just for the stupidest shit. Gamora was really great. I loved her dynamic with Thanos. just her absolute hatred for him and how he actually cares about her. Chris Pratt as Star-Lord, obviously good performance again, even though everybody hates him for doing the thing that was going to happen anyway. But Teenage Groot, good line here and there, good writing. Rocket, actually, I think had some of the best interactions in the movie with Thor. And can I just say that I imagine in the casting room when Peter Dinklage walked in and they offered him the role of the dwarf, he was just like, "Oh, I'm playing a dwarf again." And the casting director's just like, "Yes, but you're a Norse dwarf, so you're a giant. You're just short in stature." And I just assume his face was just lit up and he was going, "Sign me the fuck up." So all of his scenes were great. I loved him. His interactions with Thor and Rocket were really fucking entertaining. And I mean, it's Peter Dinklage. You're gonna get great performances from him. He's actually one of my favorite actors. So yeah, you have all these different storylines happening, which are all gonna converge at the end, and like Thanos is gonna do the thing where everybody turns into Bisquick, and it's a great story that, unfortunately, because of the nature of this movie, felt too short. And that says it a lot from a 2.5-hour movie, because it's not the full story. You're getting half of a 5-hour movie, and sometimes that works better. Like, when you watch like the extended edition of like Return of the King, you actually kind of get into it, even though it's long as fuck. Or you're enjoying Gone with the Wind, because while it's long, you're enjoying every performance in it, and it's just really, really engrossing. But here, it ended too soon for me, and I feel like it would have been better if maybe it went a little longer, or maybe if it went a little shorter, and they tried to get a little bit more into what will be Avengers 4. So, all in all, it's a solid, definitively okay movie. I think that once the next part of it comes out, it'll feel more complete, and it'll feel like a really great movie, as a big movie that you watch back to back. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say about that. I obviously don't want to go too much into the specifics of the movie, because if you haven't seen it, you gotta go see it. It's really good. Those are all the movies I saw in the last month. I think that was a pretty eventful month, and I'm looking forward to some more stuff that's going to be coming out. I'm probably going to be going to the movies a bunch more in the next few months. I'll do another big bunch movie thing in the near future. Who knows? I might actually go to one of the Studio Ghibli special Fandango events at a theater that's showing it, and I might include that in one as a quick little thing, because who knows, it could be fun. But for now, it's been lovely. Thank you for listening. I've been the ProGent.